everybody? This is the 13th floor. Listen to a vet, Mark Robinson, and I'm joined here with uh, CEO of WBN as usual, Mr. Best. Mr. Best.
Yes, Mr. Best, CEO of WBN,
I'm
coming
joined.
to you live from Lehman College. And we also have Mr. Wendell Solano. Say hello, Wendell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once more for inviting me. Being among very great veterans here, it always
You're
feels great.
WBN. We didn't invite you.
I invite myself lately.
Right, there you go. And we have our guest today. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Kenthedo Robinson, playwright, director, do a little acting also.
Okay, all right. We won't hold that against you.
So, Mr. Kenthedo, thank you for coming to the show. We actually have so much information that we want to get right into. We want to really go into deep. But one of the first questions that kind of like I'm actually curious to know. It's we understand that you wrote a play, and it has to do with the Buffalo Hero of World War One. And prior to going to this, how long have you been writing?
Oh gosh, I have been writing since I would say about 8, 9, 10 years old. Since I've been about 8, 9, 10 years old, I used to write poetry. What I used to write lines, and I didn't know what I was writing, but they said it was poetry later. But my brother used to tear my stuff up.
Really?
Oh yeah. So I was really devastated by that. You know, he was not a word person. He didn't like to read. He didn't like to do all that kind of stuff. And I did. I loved it. It was a way of escape, of course. But I very distinctly remember one time he taking my poetry and tearing it up. And I think after that, I even wrote more. I didn't really start writing plays until about college, when I was in college. And I hail from the Midwest, Kansas. I was born in Kansas. I jumped around in a lot of colleges. But I was following this girl, it was a girl in the neighborhood. We were in plays in high school together, and she really wanted to do this thing. And I kind of just followed her around to a few colleges. She kind of landed at one college, Pittsburgh State University in Kansas. And I kind of moved around a little bit until I found Park College, which was probably about 15, 20 minutes from my mother's house. And at Park College, it was a private school, and I was able to get a lot of more attention than Pittsburgh State, where you have a classroom of 120 students or something like that. But at Park, I was able to really get real focused attention while I was there. I actually studied communication arts for my bachelor's. So the writing bug really started there. I used to write articles. I used to write for the radio, and I had a TV program. I had a jazz program, so I used to have to do a lot of writing for that.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So you were thoroughly influenced as far as your writing skills was concerned through your college education. That's a good thing. So where did actually the Buffalo Heroes, how did you actually wanted to start writing about the Buffalo Heroes?
Well, actually, I did not want to start writing about the Buffalo Hero. What happened was that when I was in college, there was this man by the name of Joe Louis Maddox, who was a historian in Kansas City area, and he encouraged me to join the Phi Beta Sigma. So he became like kind of a father figure to me, and he was a writer. So he would write for the newspapers. He wrote for probably 35 years for the newspaper, but he encouraged me to be a writer. Once I saw what his life was like. He went to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, and he would get up about 3, 4 in the morning, and he would go and he would write. And then he would write these beautiful articles that always appear in a lot of the papers in Kansas City. So he was the one that encouraged me to write this play, The Buffalo Hero.
Really?
Yeah. There was a housing project in Kansas City called the Wayne Miner Housing Project.
Right.
And when we were young coming up, we were told, don't go over there. It's dangerous, don't go near the projects. But Joe approached me probably about 6 years ago now. He said, I want you to write a play about Wayne Miner. And I said, you want me to write a play about the
Yeah, first tell us
projects?
who Wayne Miner is so that we can further.
Wayne Miner is the last guy to die in World War One.
Okay.
Out of Kansas City, we had the first guy to die in World War One.
Really?
Yes. And we had the last guy to die in World War One. The first one was a white soldier. The last one was a black soldier. And so Wayne was a very quiet. When you see his picture and you study his picture, you look at him and you think, oh, he was a soft guy.
Right.
Just a soft-looking guy. And I used to have these conversations with Joe, the historian, about that. And Wayne was also known as, through his lieutenant, that he always stepped up. He was always ready to volunteer.
Right. So he was one of those guys who came to action. He was also a private in the Army.
Right.
So he really didn't have any rank or anything, but he had prestige within his unit.
Oh, yes.
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 So that's what really actually made Wayne Miner important as far as World War II. Because
World War
I'm sorry, World War One.
Yeah.
Because he stepped up and did things for others,
Right.
and
Exactly.
and they took
Yes.
notary of it.
Yeah. He in the play, I created a character that was kind of like the balancing act. He kept things in balance. He was basically quiet, but he kept things in balance, and he only stepped in when he felt that things were out of balance or that someone
Right.
may be hurt or get in trouble. He was just as interested in keeping men alive as he was in actually fighting and killing men on the other side.
Right.
So what happened is that in terms of writing the play and creating him, and when Joe came to me about writing about this guy, I said, I can't write a play about the projects. And he said, Wayne Miner is much more than the projects because the projects were named after him. That's all we knew when we were growing up. We just knew the projects. We didn't know who he was.
Right.
And when Joe finished educating me about who he was and what he meant to the Kansas City area, and I even took it further in the play to give him an international acclaim.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that was because I actually traveled to France. Wayne Miner is buried in France. A lot of our soldiers that were in World War I are buried in France. They have some of the most beautiful, beautiful memorial sites. And I was able to go. A friend of mine who works in London at the school, he's the principal in the schools in London. He took us on a tour to France. He said, "I'm going to take you guys to France when you come, because I'll be off. We'll be out." And we went to France, and we actually went to his gravesite. And we walked into the place. The lady said, "Oh, I'm so glad you guys came. Whenever the students come to visit the site, we always tell them about Wayne Miner being the last guy that died in World War I."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so she takes us to the site, and we get some sand from World War I era, and we spread it over the tombstone, and the name kind of pops out because it's all the white crosses,
Right.
and the name pops out. And it was quite moving.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And the good part about all of this is we actually have a actor who played a part in the Wayne Miner story in the Buffalo Heroes, and that's Mark Robinson.
That is me.
Yes, Mark played a pivotal part in it. And Mark, tell us a little bit about what you did and what part you played.
I played the role of Lieutenant Clark. He was their basically the platoon leader of Wayne Miner and the other two soldiers, and he was under the command of a captain, Captain Blue, who wasn't too keen on black soldiers, especially and black officers.
Call it what it is.
Some would say racist.
Right.
But yeah, and he was sort of like the, he had to keep his soldiers in line, but he was also very protective of them, especially as the shield from the other officers who don't have their best intentions.
Or best interest.
Or best interest, yeah,
Right.
best interest in mind, and so it was kind of a balancing act because you have to be protective, but you also have to be their leader, and also at the same time you have to be able to stand up for them while also following orders, no
right,
matter
remaining on
where
the-
they come
yeah.
from, exactly. And so, no, it was a great experience.
Yes, it was a great play. I seen the play myself, and I was thoroughly impressed. About all the characters, actually. There was a character of a woman that was also in the play. She played the nurse, and she
Yes.
played a very pivotal part in all of it. So tell us a little bit about her. And
Wow, she is a very. She's a character that I'm still struggling with. It was important that I have a nurse in because she brought this particular character. Her name was Angelica.
yes, I thought that was
Yeah.
apropos, actually.
Yeah, and she turns out to be more than a nurse at the end of the play.
Yes.
But it was important to have her in to also create the atmosphere of the time because everybody wasn't allowed to join the Red Cross. All females were not allowed to join the Red Cross. And so what they had to do was they had to create an auxiliary nurse corps, and she was able to eventually join that. But she, in the beginning of the play, sings this kind of a song because she is doing her effort for the war. She's doing her efforts for
Right.
the war also. So what she does is she sells trinkets. She sings songs
Yeah.
for money,
Right.
for the
I like
war
the
effort.
angel thing that she was doing,
Yeah.
because that's what solidified the whole group. She
Yeah.
was selling everybody these little angels.
Angel wings, yes.
And she'll
yes.
tell you take one and send the other one home to your loved one. And when you get back home,
You put them
combine the two.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That just came out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Kenthedo, I actually kind of.
We're going to take a small break.
Oh, go ahead.
We're going to take a small break. We'll be back with 13th Floor, Talk to a Vet, with our special guest, Mr. Kenthedo Robinson, talking about the Buffalo Hero World War I.
A family she wanted. She said, a family like yours.
Learn more about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Un mensaje de the Alzheimer Association y the Ad Council.
I can't believe he found them.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
And we are back. This is 13th Floor Listen to a Vet, a WBN production at TBJ Radio at Lehman College. I'm here with Mr. Bess, Wendell, and our guest, Kenthedo Robinson, and he's talking about his play Buffalo Hero World War I. So before the break, we were talking about his process for creating the characters, and Wendell, you had a question?
Oh, definitely. Like it's very actually fascinating to hear that in France, they know more about him than here in the United States, that which they have a project that is more visible than a cemetery and then a tomb. That's one thing that was a little eye-opener for me. And the other thing was, let's go back a little bit to know more about Private Miner. I understand he joined the military.
Yes.
And where was he taken to? Was he a combat engineer, an infantry? How was he categorized in the military?
Yes. He along with he joined the 92nd Division, and they were actually not allowed to learn how to fight. They were considered stevedores. So the stevedore is the person who would unload the ships, who would move the ammunition to certain points, who would do all those things, but not be trained to fight.
So more like hard labor.
Yes.
Okay.
More like hard labor. So a lot of times they were considered the mules or the pack horses.
Right, yes.
So yeah, that's what they were considered as. So you had a lot of soldiers joining at that time because we are probably Civil War's over at around 1869. Maybe you can stretch it to 1870 in terms of the effects, and even 30 years after that we're in 1900, and so the war is in 1914. So it's a lot of residual effects from the Civil War, and you had a lot of people that were just kind of almost roaming the country after they were freed. So a lot of them took up joining the army. I mean, it wasn't, it meant you got money, you had food, you had a roof over your head, and you could travel. So a lot of them joined. Now, I created the character of Wayne, and we don't know much about his grandfather, but I created the character of his grandfather and his father as being former Buffalo soldiers. Because the Buffalo Soldiers also went all the way out to the national parks.
What is a Buffalo Soldier, Kenthedo?
That's very interesting. There are kind of two theories. There's one that the soldiers were called Buffalo Soldiers because of their kinky hair.
Right.
That's one theory. And then the other theory is that they were called Buffalo Soldiers because of their fierce fighting skills.
Yes.
So I took them and put them both together in the play.
Amen. That's a good thing.
When the captain asked that question.
Yes, but we also got to keep in mind that back in World War I, they weren't allowed to carry guns.
Yes.
Yes. So it was forbidden for them.
Right.
They couldn't even pick up one, even if they were on the field of fighting.
Right.
They couldn't pick up a gun.
Right.
So,
which I played with a lot in terms of the dramatic effect in the play because since they were not able to be trained, the captain needed them to go out on the battlefield while the war was going on because his men had retreated. But it became a question from the lieutenant that you want my men to go out there and you haven't trained them, and what are you going to do? Send them out to be annihilated? And so that particular thing comes up in the play where the captain says, well, they can pick up the guns from the men who's fallen already.
Right.
So, Kenthedo, so how did Private Miner get to the battlefield?
Okay, so they enlisted in Kansas City. A group of them came. They would come to the train stations. He met up with other people, these other two soldiers at the train station. They went to training in Iowa.
Okay.
Right. And so after training in Iowa, they were shipped over to France. And there's a chunk of time in there where they're kind of like dormant. I'm sure they were working, but it wasn't like they were at the battlefield. And so eventually when they went to France, not long after they went to France, they ended up in the battlefield.
Was there, I'm so sorry if you guys have any questions, but sorry to interrupt. Was there any particular regiment or battalion that were African American based that was sent during that time to battle?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because he was a member of the 92nd Division. The 92nd Division was primarily an all-black.
It was an all-black.
Yeah. The 93rd Division came afterwards.
Yes.
And they were all black, but they were the
Harlem
Harlem
Hellfighters.
Hellfighters.
That was
Yeah.
that's the unit I was in.
Yes. Oh, so they were the Harlem Hellfighters. So they're famous. So when Joe approached me about writing this play, he said, I want to write a play about the 92nd because nobody ever talks about the 92nd. So I said, okay. So I'm going to have to make this guy a real hero because nobody ever talks about the 92nd. So that's how we were able to
Very
approach
poignant.
that.
Yes. And so then the other thing is the lieutenant that Mark Robinson played, a member of our staff on WBN. He did a great job in portraying the lieutenant.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mark. Because lieutenant, they didn't have black officers
Yes.
in World War II, and World War One, but they specifically made a black officer for this one battalion.
Yes.
They didn't exist anywhere else in the United States Army except in the black infantry units.
Right.
And the infantry units that they were on, they weren't allowed to fight. So how was that they were called infantry units if they weren't allowed to fight? All right, they were support help. They weren't actually infantry, but they supplied or supported infantry unit. Am I right?
Yes, right. It was in all the research that I did, and I actually researched this play for about 5 years or so.
Yes.
In all the research I did, there were some sections of the research that said that they could let them learn how to fight if they wanted to.
Yes.
So there were certain forts that if they wanted to teach them how to fight, they could, and that is what one of that's one of the approaches that Lieutenant Clark, that was played by Mark, approaches the captain about.
Right.
You know, the other soldiers are learning how to fight, and they're not even going to the battlefield.
Right.
You know, but you're teaching them how to fight. So they could have taught them. It may have been, on the side.
Right.
But they could.
At least they would have knew how to fight
Exactly.
when they were in the war
Yeah.
and posed with the question, should I shoot you or not?
Yes.
Okay, Kenthedo.
Okay.
So in order to write this beautiful play, you had to put your mindset into that culture at that time with all its diverse problems. Now, and this is a question for you and Mark. You as a writer, how did you were able to put that emotional part into the play, and how did that translate to you as an actor? Were you able to feel what he wrote? So
You want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, wow.
See how that works?
play, Kenthedo. I like that.
I know, right?
WBN is in the house.
Great.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
indeed.
That's a great pun. No, so for me as an actor, it was, a lot of it. I mean, granted, I've never been a lieutenant, but I've been in the military. So a lot of it, I drew on my experience as being in the military and being a leader. But I would say the challenge was not necessarily the words; it was the time frame, because the way I initially would play him would be as if, I was in the military today. And so a lot of, Mr. Roberts would tell me I had to kind of scale back in my aggression and other things. But the emotional through line was always the same. I was always, trying to do what's best for his soldiers. It's just the way in doing it was, and then the same thing, like you can be forceful and aggressive and don't necessarily have to be loud and angry. And so for me, that was something that I had to learn through many, 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 many questions.
Many, many, many?
Many, many questions.
Did you leave out any minutes? Okay.
Every time we went to rehearsal, I'm like, I have a question. Are you sure I should be, And so, but like I said, it's just because the difference in how things were back then as how they are now. And, my particular experience as being in the military and being a leader in the military was way different than, back then. Because he had a lot riding on, between the racism at the time, the fact that this is, the only black company and they already have a bad outlook on black soldiers in general. So he still had to be the lieutenant, be the leader, be the example, and also have to carry all of this with him and trying to navigate the minefield that is racism in that time.
Right.
And
that had
so-
to be very, very difficult at that time, because, like you said, racism was prevalent, and to be a leader of black men. Black men are asking you to be black 1st, and then the army is asking you to be army first.
Yes.
So to be caught in that quagmire.
Conflict of interest.
Well,
Yes, it had to
and,
be
and
different.
the other thing is that the power and authority that comes with a lieutenant is all well and fine for a white lieutenant back then.
Right,
But
right.
at the same time, you're kind of being hamstringed because you kind of have this position that's not really your position. It's
Yes.
like you can't. I can't, as a black lieutenant in that time frame, I can't lead soldiers the way a white lieutenant would.
Right, and you can't go to officers' clubs.
Yes.
You can't
And
do the
and
things
so
that
you're
white
pretty much
officers can do.
treated like a private.
So, Mark, what did you learn for what he wrote and all the questions you have that you still use till this day?
Well, one of the main things I learned. So, me personally, as an actor, I don't play angry very well because I don't get angry. Like, it's not because I'm not an angry person. Like, I just don't do that. Like, that's not my. And so, when I get a role where I have to be angry, I do it in probably the most theater way you can do it, the most over the top way you can do it. And exactly, because when somebody tells you to play angry, it's different than somebody telling you
turn
to
to
be
the Hulk or
angry.
something, Mark?
No, it's just
difficult.
we always equate anger to loudness and but you can still be angry and talk to somebody.
And
you can still be
respectful.
yes, and so that was kind of the thing that I had to learn was that playing an emotion and being an emotion is two different things.
Right.
And, and so you can convey all of those emotions in a whisper or in a roar. And so through my many conversations with Mr. Robinson, that was my main takeaway. Like, you can definitely.
So, Kenthedo, it seems like you really created something that was touching to the actor. So, how did you do it?
About 4 to 5 years of research, I often came back around in a circle. A lot of things that happened 4 or 5 years ago, with the climate that we're in today, I saw and felt the same climate that I was researching in World War I.
Yes.
Same issue.
So you found similarities.
A lot of similarities.
I
I was able to use a section in the play. I had the guys get some boots, finally get some boots, because they had been complaining about not getting any, gear that was proper. And then they're in Iowa, and it's like January, February. And so they finally get some boots. And I have them break out into this stomp kind of thing, like,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I got my boots on the ground, ready to pound, baby, pound these Huns to the ground. So the Huns, the people that were fighting. And the other one would jump in. I got my boots on the ground. I'm ready to pound, baby, pound these germs to the ground, meaning Germans. Right? So boots on the ground is something that was prevalent about, 5 years ago or so? So I was able to incorporate that into the play. And there were so many things that I saw that I used after researching for World War I could come back and pick up a lot of things out of what was happening today.
Okay.
All right, let me ask you a question, too. Also, Private Miner talked to his mother a lot.
Yes.
Okay, who was a spiritual being and not necessarily physical, but he prayed to her and he talked to her and she guided him through the Buffalo Song or her knowledge of what the Buffalo Soldier is, being that her husband and her father were Buffalo Soldiers.
Yes. Wayne, at the very beginning of the play, when he's talking to the nurse, they're talking about Birth of a Nation. And in the Birth of a Nation, and I think Birth of a Nation is important to this period because it was shown at the White House right around World War I, just
Yeah,
before.
Woodrow Wilson. Yeah.
Yes. And Joe, the historian, made a joke with me one time and said that the racist element of America found out that blacks were afraid of ghosts.
Yeah.
And so that's how they came about with the hood
Yeah.
and all of
the
that.
white sheets and hoods and covering the heads. Yeah.
Yeah, so that connection with the ghost thing, because in that beginning of the play, he says to the nurse, "My mama said we ain't never been afraid of ghosts." She said, "We know spirits all the way back to the motherland."
Yes.
So I was able to kind of cut that mountain down and just make the playing field level.
Yeah, make
in
it
terms of
even.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Change the
Right.
perception of that saying. And actually, from the point of view from the audience, Mr. Best, I understand you saw this play.
Yes.
What were your thoughts about it?
All right. My thoughts, first of all, I'm a veteran, and I'm a veteran of a foreign war. So I connected immediately with them getting on the trains and having to move out, go write your last letter to your loved one, that kind of thing. And I drew strength and pain from it because I once had to write those letters, and I got on a plane that shipped me across the world to a country that I knew nothing about. And when Wayne Miner and them got on the train, and the train about to pull out, and they're all saying, "Come on, everybody, all the black guys, come on, man." And the nurse is saying, "Listen, before you go, take this angel wing, okay, which is a piece of civilization, for lack of a better word. Take this, and you give this one to your loved one. You take this and put this in your pocket so they'll see you safely home." And it's apropos that her name was Angelica.
Yeah.
Angelica,
Yes.
right. So she's giving out angel wings. She's writing letters for the soldiers. And that's the last piece of civilian life or civility that they've seen once they got over there. And now they're dogged out, they're less than nothing, and you're doing manual labor and you're huffing and puffing. Well, I was a combat soldier, and it felt the same way to me. When we got in Vietnam, it was a totally different atmosphere. It wasn't home anymore. You weren't in Kansas anymore.
Yes, right.
No authority either.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden, you got to go out and do something that you don't want to do for somebody you don't want to even do it for. But nevertheless, your duties as a soldier prevailed. And that's what happened with Wayne Miner and them. Their duties of a soldier prevailed, except one guy. Tell us about that one guy who was...
Oh, you're talking about
Captain Blue.
you're talking about the guy who
not just Captain Blue, the one who
didn't want to go back.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now this is a totally amazing, because this one guy, the captain is telling them, "Okay, listen, we need you to go out there and give my troops some ammunition." And he's like, "Man, I don't want to go. My foot hurts. I sprained my ankle. Whatever. I'm not going to put my life on the line for them. But that's when Wayne Miner becomes the hero.
Yes, yes, yeah. I'm telling you, he didn't. He when I first drew that character, I knew what I wanted him to do in the play, and I could not tell Joe the historian that because we would have had too many conversations about it, and I didn't want anybody to touch what I wanted to do with that character.
Okay.
I wanted him to not be able to go out because of his feet.
Right.
Now, some people joined the Army and they would do things like hurt themselves to get the insurance.
Seen it all.
They would do that, or they would say they would hurt themselves so they didn't have to go out.
Right.
But that particular character I drew him as a very big, physical, big, jolly character.
Imposing guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of life. He was supposed to have a lot of life to him, right? But the war affected him so much that he just could not even go back out of the bunker anymore. What he does is he cuts his feet, because he knows that if he cuts his feet, that you really should not send a man back out because he's injured.
You're not servable anymore.
Yes. And so what happens is that when he does that, the captain is very upset with him. No, you're going back out. No, you're going back out. He says, I can't go out. And then that's when Wayne Miner steps forward and basically says, I'll go out. I know the terrain. I'll go out there. I'll get the ammunition to the men. Right. And so this guy is kind of sitting over on the sideline. He's going, Wayne, I'm sorry. I just can't go out there. I just can't do it anymore. I can't do it. And he says, here, take my angel wing and give it to my wife if I don't make it out of here. So he takes his angel wing, and he takes the lieutenant, gives him his angel wing also. And he takes the ammunition. Wayne steps forward, and he gives everybody one long look before he goes out, the captain and the lieutenant. And he says, good, Godspeed. Godspeed. Right. And he goes out and he takes the ammunition out. Of course, he's hit by shrapnel. Yeah. And he doesn't quite make it. Now, according to the account that was actually written that still survives today, he all we hear is that he was hit by shrapnel and he was killed. But I took the liberty in making him a hero. He was hit by shrapnel, according to my story, but he also was given help by the angel, who comes in and lifts him up and has him move on to push the ammunition out to the other men, and the other men get the ammunition, and the tide of the war is turned, and thus we win World War I.
Yeah. We're going to take a short break on that note. This is 13th Floor, Listen to a Veteran on WBN, and we'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Ajene. Sometimes starting a conversation with a friend about mental health can feel awkward, but your support can make a huge difference. You know your friends best, so if you feel like something's wrong, trust your instinct and reach out. Learn how to start the conversation at seizetheawkward.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And we are back. This is 13th Floor, Listen to a Vet. I am Mark Ramsden. I'm joined with Wendell Solano and Mr. Best with our guest, Kenthedo Robinson. We're talking about the Buffalo Hero World War I, the play that he wrote that I was also in. We are at Lehman College Radio under the TuneIn app. So if you want to listen to this show, you can download the TuneIn app from your Apple Store or the Play Store. Look up Lehman College CUNY on the TuneIn app. You had a question before we went to the break?
Yeah, we saw how touching, and there's historical documentation to prove all these things as well. And we saw that there's definitely has a lot of value. When you had those when you read those documents, what do you feel like? What kind of sentimental value did you give to those documents?
Well, I felt connected to history. I felt connected to today. I felt that these men were. I'm a part of their family. Because so often we don't know. We don't know what's going on out there, and like I said, you know, the Wayne Miner projects, we were often told just not to go there. We were never told who this person was.
Right.
And so these documents connect us and say who this person was, that it was a real person, right? So that is very valuable to me. And I did a lot of research also at the Schomburg, and I'm picking up those documents, actual letters that were sent to the French lieutenants to say to them, do not shake the hands of a black soldier in front of a white soldier. Do not give them any medals in front of a white soldier. Do not do these things in front of another white soldier. Those kind of things just really, you know, I mean, this is what we don't know. We don't know these things. You know.
They were very restricted then.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. But it also shows. It also is able to make us connect to history. We did the Civil War.
Yeah.
And you know, the Union soldiers won the Civil War, right? But after the Civil War, there was this dormant period where nothing was happening, and then that's how we got, I believe, into this other thing about blacks cannot join and fight with us. How did that happen? They fought with them during the Civil War. So where did this thing happen? Somewhere in the middle.
Well, there's a historical precedence as far as that's concerned in the Civil War, because even though the blacks fought with them, they fought in separate units too. You know, they never fought side by side with white soldiers. The black ones went in first, you know, and they got as far as they could go until the last man, and then the white soldiers come in behind them and says, okay, now we'll see how far we can go. And generally, usually, the black soldiers have already accomplished the objective, so they don't really have to push that far. And if they lose a couple of men, then they'll just back up and retreat and start again the next day with the new black front. But with that being said, all wars are terrible. World War I was probably one of our worst wars, simply because it was our first World War.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Now, with that significance being made, blacks in the United States were under a deep, hard oppression. So when we decided that we wanted to go fight for our country, they really meant it. They really meant, this is my country too. All right, I am here. You drugged me here kicking and screaming, but now that I'm here, I'm here.
Right.
This is my piece. And so I will lay my life down for my country despite your oppression. So tell us how you came about writing or thinking about writing or doing this story, the Buffalo Soldiers, who were under such harsh oppression.
Well, there was a big controversy on whether to fight or not. I mean, Black America, and even white America was divided on it. They didn't really want some of the blacks to fight. They didn't want, and we keep focusing on the black, but there were a lot of different ethnicities.
Native Americans.
That's right. That's right.
Even Native Americans.
Native Americans.
Yes.
Jewish people, people from other countries.
Yes, Spanish Americans, even though they came from other parts of the world.
Yes,
you know, they still fought under the same umbrella, the same banner.
I think it was a chance for people to say, I am a part of this country, just like you just said a moment ago. But this is going to solidify it. This act And if we win, this will say we belong.
Right.
And you cannot erase that. And it actually did do that. It actually did do that. The accolades didn't come the same way as it came with some of the other soldiers, because they had a big war. They had a big parade over in France.
Yes.
But the black soldiers were not included in the parade.
Right.
So, I just think it was a point of, this is my country too. This is my country too, because some of them were born here.
Right.
They weren't, their fathers and forefathers may have been slaves and brought to this country, but some of them were actually born here, and they said, no, this is a peace of mind too. This is,
But also how important for them is to rewrite history, because that was the opportunity too.
yes.
Like if I am seen of the oppressor and I want to change that image of oppression, I am going to do what's right regardless of what others say and stand for my country. So now you can never erase history.
That's right.
You can never do that because there's names and documents proving that. And what intrigues me now is we always have we talk a lot about World War II, other wars, and there seems to be more valuable than World War I. So, which is not true.
Yeah.
I disagree with that, but it's more popular, and we need to understand why.
Well, let me answer part of that question. You just hit it on the head when you said changing history.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change something that already happened, but you can hide it.
Exactly.
Okay? And that's what happened in World War II. Now, we know we had black pilots, we had black infantrymen, but some of those people had to fight under different banners for different countries. The same thing, the same outcome was to win the war. And that's what they were interested in.
Right.
Okay? So, changing history, I beg to differ, because we've known historically that history has been changed or silenced or covered, whichever avenue you choose.
Okay. So writing history.
There you go.
Being a part, creating history.
Creating.
Yeah.
That's
being a part. That's very important. I don't think that they, like you say, they can't take it away from us. They can't take it away. And when I went to visit the memorial over in France,
Yes.
she took us to some other crosses, sites, right, grave sites, and one was a Jewish person, had a Jewish star on the cross. One was a very wealthy soldier whose father was extremely wealthy. So you had, and he happened to be a white soldier. So you have a lot of different
backgrounds
that are there, because it's for all World War I American soldiers. The memorial site is set for that.
Interesting, because that tells us that to win at something, you need that diversity and that unity.
The unity,
to move
yes,
into.
yes.
They always say, if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
Yes.
And
So let's just bring it back to something. How about that song, the Buffalo Soldier song?
Yes, the Buffalo Soldier song is the first one I wrote. When I wrote this, and I knew the story that Wayne Miner was going to be the one who stepped up at the end of the play and say, "I'll go forward and take this ammunition out so we can win this thing." Right? I wrote a song, and this is. I'll just quickly just give you a little bit of it.
Please.
Okay, so it starts like this. From the darkness comes a light, comes a vision through the night. I hear a voice that calls across the water and down these halls. In my silence, please give me strength and help me build my confidence. So if I stay or if I go, will you shine a light upon my soul? I lift my head, I take a breath to break these chains of fear and death. I'll take my charge, I'll run, not fall. In deeds, not words, will be my call. In deeds, not words, will be my call. Come fly me high above this night to win this war, to win this fight. And when I hear that voice that calls, I'll run, not fall towards my charge, 'cause deeds, not words, will be my call. Deeds, not words, will be my call.
That gives me shivers. Man.
Yeah, thank you. Deeds, not words is the actual slogan for the Buffalo Soldiers of the 2nd Division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I wrote this and I said this will be like a prayer or a song that he will say when he's getting ready to take that step out he's on the battlefield, he's getting ready to take that step out. So he would have kneeled on his knees and prayed this or sang this song. And it would have given him the impetus to go out.
Yeah, it almost gave me emphasis to go charge out there. Okay, let's go, y'all.
Oh, my God.
But no, the song was great. And to hear it with the cadence is even more poignant. So I give you kudos for writing that song because it has different meanings to it. From the darkness comes a light, comes a vision through the night. Just that one little part says a lot, you know? Yeah. And if you're a spiritual person, it says one thing to you. If you're ideological, it says another thing to you. So it depends on who you are and your background and what you come from. But we really appreciate all of this that you've done and where we've gone with it. But give us your last your last comments before we close.
Yeah, I'm going to just go to the angel thing a little bit. I didn't quite answer your question.
Okay.
You asked about how creating the angel. I did, in all the research about war and stuff, there's always an angel. Mm-hmm. There's an angel that appears and helps. And then I went to the Philadelphia train station, and there is a beautiful, beautiful statue.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Of the angel that lifts up the brother, the fallen soldier.
Yes.
And the wings are pointing up, and he's lifting the soldier up. And that's where I got the impetus to include this angel into the play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any closing statements?
Well, first I'd like to thank Mr. Robinson for coming out.
Absolutely.
And you did a wonderful job in the play, Mark.
Yeah,
thank
Mark.
you. Thank you.
Tony Award winner.
Whoa.
No, Mark was great. Come on, Mark.
Yes.
Take your kudos.
I know, right? I'm a modest person. I don't know this, but and obviously Wendell and Mr. Best. How do we, if someone wants to get in contact with you, Mr. Robinson, how would they do that?
Well, you can contact me at Kenthedo@gmail.com. That's KENTHEDO@gmail.com. You can contact me through my Gmail account. We're going to be doing this as a play pretty soon. Is that right, Mr. Best?
Let me say this. Yes,
That was my question.
I was going to say what's happening in the future. That was going to be my next thing.
Right.
That was my question.
WBN is going to not only film it, but we're also going to do a television production, and we're going to do it live. So, we got future plans for this play. This is a great play that everybody should see and take the same experience that I got out of it. So, we're gonna definitely move forward on this project. The two projects. First one is the radio and having you here. The second one is doing the play. You're presenting the play, and we tape it, and then we'll put it up on BronxNet TV.
And how would somebody get in contact with you, Mr. Best, if they have any interest
how
in
do you
WBN?
get in contact with me?
Yes.
You can contact me through We Belong Network. That's www.WeBelongNetwork, all one word, .org. Or you can contact us through our Facebook page, We Belong Network, our Instagram page, We Belong Network. And I can go on and on and on. My telephone number, and I only give this out to special people, so all of you people that are listening are very special. 347-499-8946. That's 347-499-8946. And I just want to thank TJ for listening. I know you're out there, okay?
Kenthedo, thank you.
Sure,
Thank you so much for coming here and I hope I get front row tickets.
Yes,
You know,
of
since
course.
I kind of know the WBN CEO of this place and the playwriter. So,
Oh, man, it
you
was
know,
great, man.
hook me
It was
up,
great.
Kenthedo,
Thank
with
you.
some good seats.
Yeah.
But it's so great to have you here. And I remember briefly asking you, along with creation and personality, is the practice of the theory that creates the style of a writer?
I will have to say that it is both.
Love that
Alright.
answer.
It is both.
Love that answer.
So many times I went back to the textbook and said, "Oh, you're doing this? Is that in there?"
Yeah, well, that's called hard study and research. You know,
Yeah.
we do that quite often here at WBN.
Yes.
We do a number of projects and a number of things, and plays happens to be one of them. Radio happens to be something else, but we do our own productions here too. We had one coming up called Rapid Deployment. It's about a female
Sounds good.
veteran who was deployed, and her husband chickened out on her and sent her. So, but tune in and check this story out. You'll love it. Okay, it was also directed by Susan Watson Turner, Professor Turner, here at Lehman College. So
Great.
yeah,
I happen to know her too.
You know her?
Tickets.
Yeah, she's a nice lady.
You want to go to the premiere?
Yes, indeed.
All right, this has been 13th Floor Listen to a Vet. I'd like to thank Wendell, Mr. Bess, and Kenthedo Robertson.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hopefully you'll be back.
Oh, sure.
A whole bunch of times, right? We have work to do.
Yes. Have a good night, everybody.